I believe tomorrow or potentially today, we're gonna be bringing the Jeep into the Fab Lab. In the famous garage, Caveman's Garage, where we've done all the different videos. We've done the fuel filters, the CCV filter, all sorts of stuff, working on the old Dodge over here. But now we're working on the rear end for the Jeep. This is a Ford 8.8 rear end with disc brakes, and we are going to attempt to install a Super 8.8 kit, which is new axles, new bearings, new seals. Basically, there's two reasons we went with this. These axles are hardened. They're chrome moly axles, so they're 60% stronger than the stock axles. And then on top of that, we're running a 5-on-5.5 bolt pattern with these rims, which is Ford Bronco, which is very common. So now we don't have to drill out the rear axles that came originally on the axle we picked up, which is a Ford Explorer axle. These axles will do Ford Explorer pattern, which is 5-on-4.5 or 5-on-5.5. So it saved us time and it made the axle a lot stronger by itself. And an Aussie Locker. We have never done this before. We're gonna tear into it and we're gonna do our best. Remove your rotors from each side, and then you got your axle here. This has a little mini drum brake because that's for the e-brake, and it does have disc brakes for the actual truck. Then we gotta pull the diff off, the cover off, and then we are gonna pull out the C-clips which hold the axles in. We're in the differential. We're gonna get rid of these spider gears, and then once we do that, we're gonna pull our axle shaft out. This is the very end. There's a C-clip right here. We're gonna yank the axle out. We're gonna put new axles, and we're gonna put a locker in here. So all these spider gears are gonna be trashed. First step, pull out the cross pin right here. Is gonna be getting a 5/16 wrench, and you gotta take out this set screw. We removed our cross pin, which was right here. Now, when I push on the axle, you see that spline that appeared? That right there is the C-clip. There's one on each side. So we pull the C-clips, and then the Ford 8.8 axle shaft will pull right out. There's one on each side. We're gonna do that next. We got one of the axles pulled out. This is a factory 31 spline Ford Explorer rear axle shaft. This is where the C-clip went in. We're gonna do the same on the other side, and then we have the axles out, and then we're gonna work on replacing the seals and the bearings. So you gotta remove these 4 bolts to remove your drum and your e-brake assembly. And then what we gotta do is we gotta pull this bearing out. And then believe it or not, we gotta cut the tube down to about 1/8 of an inch. Then we're gonna be installing this. This is a C-clip Eliminator Kit. So basically we're getting rid of the C-clip in the center section. In order to push the bearings out, what we did was we used a super long rod. We taped up the end to make sure it won't score the inside of the axle where the bearings are gonna see. And we literally ran it all the way through, out the other side, and then you're able to just smack it with the hammer all the way through the whole axle. Gotta watch your fingers though. Here comes the seal. Good, and it's that easy, folks. I recommend we put some Gorilla Tape on the end here, just so you don't score the inside of your axle. So now that we have the bearing and the seal out, what we gotta do is we actually have to cut this part of the housing. See how there's this, what they call a shoulder? We wanna cut right along the edge of that shoulder because then our new piece is gonna seat in there. So we're gonna shove a rag in the tube so we don't get anything in our differential. We're gonna take a Sawzall and we're gonna cut this shoulder, and then we're gonna give it a really slight grind just to make sure it's nice and flush. All right, so 2 things. You're gonna put silicone gasket maker in here, which they provide, and then you want the flat side right here to line up with the peak. We're calling it the peak, which if the axle was oriented correctly, this would be the top side of a factory Ford Explorer axle. So silicone around here and on the other part, and then the flat side up. Guys, so they provide you with these spacers. We use these spacers with the nuts, and we basically torqued them down. We jumped over cross pattern just like you do when you're doing a tire, and that pressed this into the housing, and it went nice and smooth. So just jump over back and forth, and then when you're done, just back it off and take these spacers off because you'll need them for the other side. We're gonna use our impact gun to install our wheel studs. Basically, you're gonna run them almost all the way down, add a couple drops of of red Loctite and then finish them off with the impact. And then you're gonna have it set up this way. You're gonna have your backing plate, your spacer, your seal, then your bearing, and then this chingadera. I don't know what this is called. But then we're gonna go to my buddy's shop and we're gonna press these on. And it's gonna, basically, this is all gonna come all the way down to here. Day 2 on the old Ford 8.8 here. We got it all done, pretty much buttoned up. I'm doing my best to record, but it's tough because I have so much stuff going on. I have so many things I need to get ready before we bring the Jeep into the shop. And my buddy said we're probably bringing it in today, which is Wednesday. So let me show you what we did here. All right, so when you're installing these axles, they give you a little hole here. And what's great about the hole is you can access the bolt. This is the C-clip eliminator. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So you gotta go ahead and tighten that in and make sure they're firmly tightened in on both sides. Remember, we added this when we cut off the axle housing. And then the other thing that was actually quite challenging was installing this Aussie Locker. So the key that I found with the Aussie Locker is you gotta use grease. So there's a part on each side. These basically spline in right here onto the axle shaft. So you want to stick them in with your thrust washers. And then you want to put a little bit of grease in there, just something thick and sticky to hold everything in place. And then you're going to want to put this side on, this side, and then in the middle there's some spacers. It's kind of difficult if you're by yourself. Extra set of hands helps. And then obviously you can tell now it's locked. Everything is working correctly. We tested it. And then you got to put these little springs in. They say to make a little tool. I found that it was easier just to use a Phillips screwdriver and just push the spring in and then pop it down in. Overall, it wasn't too bad. I did make a call to customer service. Aussie Locker was very responsive. And then you're gonna put your cross shaft in and then your retainer bolt to hold your cross shaft in place. Seems like everything's working, so I'm gonna go ahead and button it up. And then I'm gonna cut off the sway bar mounts, the original axle purchase, because we're not gonna be using these. So these are coming off, these are coming off, these and these. And that will be it for the Ford 8.8. All right, y'all, today is the day. The culmination. When we bought this Jeep, we knew we were gonna build it. We knew we were gonna do all these custom mods to it. Today is the day that I bring it to my buddy's shop. Take a good, long, hard look. It's not gonna look the same, you know? It's gonna be a bit taller, a bit wider. It's gonna have a lot more power. It's gonna have fuel injection. It's gonna have 4 speeds instead of 3. Overall, it's gonna be much more modern. We are stoked. This is gonna be awesome. We hope you guys are enjoying this build series. There's gonna be quite a few more videos on the Jeep. I have a feeling that we're gonna get a few people who maybe don't like the fact that it's a Jeep with Ford front suspension, with a Chevy motor and trans, a Ford rear axle, but you know what? It's gonna be a culmination of everything I love. Twin traction beams, 4-wheel drive, good mileage, and excellent off-road capabilities. Let's go. Here's where it's gonna happen. Fab Lab, Simi Valley, California. So we're here at the Fab Lab in Simi Valley, California. Obviously you can tell they got all sorts of trucks here. This is Tundra, metal rack, our frame, our tire, our Jeep. This is where the Jeep is gonna live for the next probably month or less. I know that's super ambitious. They do killer work here. Give you an idea. They're fixing this bump mount right here. Obviously, they got some King shocks. Do my best to show you guys what we can. Obviously, I'm gonna be working on the Jeep myself. So this is my buddy Mike's shop. You've seen some of his videos. He did an axle truss. He's done a few things on the Ram. I'm gonna actively be in here helping him to try and make the process go a little faster. So these videos aren't as detailed as per se some of our other tech videos. I apologize in advance, but we're gonna do our best to show you what we can and take you guys along on the build.